All right. Good afternoon, Mr. Hyatt. Is that how it's pronounced, Hyatt? Or
Yes, that's
all right,
perfect.
good. So good afternoon. Good morning, Mr. Hyatt. Well, afternoon for you, morning for me. Thank you for joining me on the 17th episode of One to Come Up, a podcast where aspiring entrepreneurs can learn from the best of the best. Those on Forbes 30 under 30. I'm excited to go over your career today and learn from you. So thank you for joining me today. Cool. So normally I like to start the podcast. Could you tell everyone a little bit about yourself? So the listeners have some background information, so we're all kind of on the same page starting here.
All right, so my name is Amaury Hayat. I'm a researcher in mathematics in a university that is called Ecole de Pont in France, in Paris. Then,
What's up?
do you want me to say anything else? Or
No, that's all good. Yeah. All right, cool. No, for some reason I thought you were gonna go on, but anyway. So yeah, and then traditionally I like to start the podcast. Going ironically back to your time in college, your initial education, because of this, I feel is like where everybody kind of starts their career. So you got your PhD at Sorbonne University, master's from Cambridge. You even had a brief experience at Harvard. So could you tell us about your experiences at some of these like top institutions in the world?
um, yes, with pleasure. So I had the chance to. So I did very long studies. So I started like a bachelor, like everyone, and then I did a PhD, and the overall process took something like nine or 10 years. So I had the chance to go to six universities in four different countries. And I think the two most striking experience I had were from a place called Sainte-Genevie, so something that you will never heard about if you're not in France, where I did my two first years of bachelor, and École Polytechnique, where I spent the last year of my bachelor and my first master's degree. So Sainte-Geneviève was special for many reasons. One of them is that it is the closest thing I've ever seen to Hogwarts. Like even going to Cambridge afterward was paradoxically not as close in spirits. And I think even today, most of my best friends come from this place. So sometimes in smaller places, you actually get some amazing experience. Then going from here, I went to École Polytechnique. So this is also a unique place. This one is known usually abroad. It's the French equivalent of the MIT, and what I think was important there is that they encouraged you to aim high whatever you do. Like, even if in the associative life, sorry, you want to create an organization or an association, that's fine. Just if you do something high or aim for big stuff. That so it goes a bit with the fact that it's historically an officer cadet school since Napoleon. So, technically students are military, even though no one goes to the military afterward, or very few people. And so it makes it special in many ways. They let you take responsibilities that a normal 20 years old will never have. Like for instance, I remember that for a week I was the acting head of the police forces for half a county. I was 19 years old, so if you think about it, that's a bit crazy.
A little bit.
Um, but then it makes you, it makes you consider what it means taking responsibilities a bit differently and very young. And so I think it's nice and transformative in this way. And I think those years were really the foundational years for me after, getting to Harvard afterward and then to Cambridge was just a consequence. It sounds a bit weird said like this, but that's a small world. Once you join a world-class institution, then the other ones will look at you very favorably. I mean, it's much easier to get into Harvard when you already come from a world-class institution. At all things equal, all other things equal. And then when I went to Sorbonne, to be fair, when you're a PhD student, you're not really a student anymore. Especially as the French PhD is like the three last years of the PhD in the US, so you already have a master's degree. At that point, because I did study physics, then I joined the senior civil service and I studied public policy, and then I went to Cambridge to study math. I already had done three master's degree. That's why it took so long for me to get to a PhD. And I think I didn't follow any course in PhD. So it's more like the first time working, essentially.
Very cool. So after you got your PhD, you then collaborated with Meta on AI systems that could prove theorems without any previous knowledge. So could you explain kind of like the shifting landscape of AI technology and math during this time, and also like your collaborations with Meta?
Yes. So I think all this started because when I was a PhD student in mathematics. Not very far from here, there was one of my friends from Ecole Polytechnique who was a PhD student in computer science at Meta doing AI. And so I had lunch from time to time there. And at some point, we were discussing and saying, I mean, it looks like there's something to be done in math with AI. I mean, math is by many aspects looks like a game. Okay, a very complicated one, but if AI is so good at like chess or Go, maybe there's something to be done. And so this friend introduced me to another person from my class at Ecole Polytechnique, who I know is a very nice guy. And he was thinking exactly the same thing. So we thought, okay, let's finish our PhDs and then start working together on this. And so we started working on this. I think it was around yeah, beginning of 2020. Hard to forget this year. And the first thing we tried was like if you take a language model, essentially what's inside ChatGPT, but it's in much smaller, and you try to train it to learn the solution to a math problem, like just to predict the solution. Don't give any proof, just predict the solution to a complicated math problem, something like something you will find in a master's degree, for instance. Is it, does the AI learn something? And the answer was yes. And it was surprising enough so that it did learn the answer, but in a much better way even than my master students. So we thought, okay, it's an incentive to do something more. And at the time, there were a few people starting to think of AI for mathematics, but it was really merely science fiction still. When I was discussing with people in math departments, for instance, I mean, the usually people will tell me, okay, that's a nice hobby. I mean, don't count on this for your career. It's not going to lead anywhere. Everything's changed, of course, with ChatGPT. I mean, like, w there were already nice works on AI for math at that point, but everyone, like the entire world, realized that AI was about to do something, and so researchers as well started to realize that there was something to be done. And so now there are much more resources in this. Essentially, last year I think there was a team from DeepMind. They managed to train an AI that can answer the problems of the International Mathematical Olympiads, something you will take at the end of high school for the best students in the US, and other countries in the world. And there I got a silver medal. So there I got a silver medal by using enough compute, like by using an amount of compute that could pay several scholarships. So probably there are probably some progresses to be done there because they use so much electricity just for a few exercise. But it means that really there is something to be done that is big, I think. Funny part of the story is that my very first collaborator in this, the one from Ecole Polytechnique, he founded afterwards a company that is called Mistral, and he's now the main competitor of OpenAI in Europe. So you can start doing this, and you can start doing math, and then do something else. Their company, I think, is valued 6 billion as of today.
Uh, wow, that's awesome that you were with him also at the beginning of his career and how far he's come, and also how far your research has come. So, anyway, so then you also after your collaborations with Meta, you came here to Jersey to Rutgers for a year, where you about an hour's drive actually, a little bit north. So maybe you know where I'm at, but anyway, so then you worked on circles, which is something maybe I can understand. It's traffic related. Um, so yeah, could you explain that?
Yes, yes, of course. So yes, I did this actually about at the same time as I was starting to work with Meta. The people in Rutgers Camden were very nice and let me work on different research projects. In particular, Benedetto Piccoli, who was vice chancellor at the time, a great researcher. So the goal of this project is simple in principle. You see, I guess you've been on the highway many times and you've seen these kind of stop and go waves that form when there are many cars. And usually, you know, there are many cars, there are stop and go waves, like it's just congestion, traffic jams, no one's surprised. The thing is, we should be surprised about it because most of the time there is no real reason for these stop and go waves to appear. Like, you know, there's probably no accident ahead, like no lane reduction, just nothing that could explain that for some reason at some point we start to accelerate, decelerate, you know, in a kind of a stop and go fashion. And the real reason behind is that it is a mathematical reason. It's this system, the system where you have many cars with many people driving on the road, is what we call in mathematics unstable when the density of cars is too high. Unstable means that everyone going at the same speed and same spacing won't happen because we don't have the ability to keep it happening. And so people will start creating these oscillations. And my work in mathematics during my PhD was about looking at unstable systems and try to make them stable again. So when I was contacted by the researchers at Rutgers Camden, they told me, yeah, you know, maybe we could do this with traffic. And this was a huge project with essentially led by UC Berkeley and with like 5 universities in the US and around 100 researchers or students. And the goal was to do this in real life. Like, okay, now you design algorithm that you're going to put in some autonomous cars that you're going to add on the traffic. So you don't have access to most of the cars of the traffic. You just have like 2 to 5% of the cars. But these cars, they are going to drive exactly the way you want. And your goal is to make them drive in a way that will influence the rest of the traffic and suppress the traffic jams. So we spent like, I think, 2 years researching on the algorithms, how to put them, and then a third year trying to put them in real life. And the conclusion of this work was an experiment that we did in November 2022 in Tennessee, where we actually put those cars on the road in real life, like the morning at peak hours. And it took us another year to analyze the results, and now we can say safely that this indeed reduces the traffic jam by a lot.
Wow, that's pretty amazing. So how do they work these cars? Like what are these like phantom jams and like what kind of causes them? Is it like I guess it can't be rubbernecking or
Well, when I was young, I was thinking like, you know, when we were stuck in a traffic jam with my parents when we were going to vacations, I was thinking, okay, there's someone in front who's not driving fast enough. What are these people doing? The reality is exactly the opposite. When you have a lot of people on the road, you know, on the road, there is an equilibrium speed that is a speed that is sustainable that depends on the spacing between two cars. If there is no one in front, you will want to go, I don't know, to 60, 70 miles an hour, depending on where you are in the US. If there are many people on the road, meaning that there is only like 10 meters between you and the guy in front of you, there's no way you're going to go at 70 miles per hour. I mean, no one's going to take this risk. And so this equilibrium speed, this ideal speed, depends on the number of cars on the road. And at some point where there is enough car on the road, people just don't follow the speed anymore. You know, you intuitively follow the speed until it's too low, and no one wants to drive that low. So people drive slightly faster than they should. And because they do this, at some point they're too close from the car in front of them, and so they have to slow down. And these create a kind of oscillation. If everyone is doing this, then this oscillation becomes bigger and bigger and bigger. So the real thing you can do if you're stuck in a traffic jam is to try to, guess what will be the equilibrium speed. So this is the hard part. This is what we have some AIs or good math algorithms to do this, and then try to follow this speed. But especially not restarting very fast when everyone, you know, when you are a traffic jam is like a wave. At some point it drives very fluidly, and then when you are at the peak of the wave, like everyone is just stopped and waiting for everyone to restart. When everyone restarts, you should not restart too fast. That's the best way of dampening the traffic jam.
it's kind of interesting that math is able to parallel human psychology like that, and that there's some overlap there. You know. Anyway, so after circles, you I suppose you had some other work on some stuff that's a little bit beyond me, but your most recent project has to do with the stabilization of partial differential equations, and you're sponsored by PEP's JCJC. That's like the English, I guess, equivalent. I can't pronounce the French, obviously. So I guess in the simplest terms, what is this, and what are the real world implications of it?
Yeah, so the PEPS JC it's a small project for young researchers. It's a very nice I think it's a very nice initiative that gives you a little bit of money just to try to work on something, and if it works, they give you some more money, hopefully. So now I got the next one, that is the ANR.
Nice shot.
That's it. Thanks. That's the equivalent of the NSF grant in France. And so the principle here is to do exactly the same as in traffic, but in a more formal way, more abstract way for many different systems. For instance, there is so what I was studying here is what we call control theory. Control theory is about asking yourself the question: if I can act on a system, what can I make it do? That's a question that everyone asks themselves every day. I mean, just if I can act on I can act on a door, how can I open it? Like, you just push on the door, and so. But the good thing about asking yourself this question in mathematics is that if you can get some kind of general theory about that, you will be able to achieve many things. You will be able to control many different systems. Control theory got its like, I'd say, hour of glory at in the end of the 60s, beginning of the 70s, with the landing on the moon and all this stuff, because it was particularly useful for aerospace. Because it's exactly this. I mean, you have a rocket. There's a few things you can do. You can have more thrust at one point or another. How do you have people landing safely on the moon? That's exactly the principle of this theory. But you can do this for more complicated systems. For instance, imagine you have a river, and you want to make sure that the level of the river is more or less the same, because they are riverside cities, so you will not risk anything. Maybe you have boats on this river that are used for transportation, for, I don't know, freight or whatever. So if you want this river to not move at all, what can you do on the river? Well, usually you can't do much. The only thing you can do is, if you have a dam upstream and downstream, you can try to move the dams, even though there is maybe, I don't know, 100 kilometers between those two, like, I'd say 50 miles. Um, so all this theory would answer the question: how can I move the dam to make sure that the level of the water is essentially the same everywhere? You got the same question on where is it the best to send some medication or some vaccine for a given epidemic, if you want to control the number of people infected. So all these are essentially following some mathematical theory, mathematical equations that you could study with this control theory. So my goal in the stabilization of partial differential equations was to try to give some general answers to these questions for every system that has some transportation phenomena, everything with a flux somewhere or a flow, like traffic, rivers, epidemia is the same thing. So the goal was really to get some general mathematical tools.
That's cool. So I can kind of see how it all ties together. You're predicting human behavior like through the stabilization of these several variables. First with the driving the cars, you stabilize the speed and that control the traffic, and now you're stabilizing the placement of a dam, and that stabilizes the level. So I guess where do you think the future of this will be? What do you think your future projects will be? And I guess what other real life what else are you gonna do?
So that's an interesting question. I think in my future projects there will be a good part of AI for mathematics, because I think that's really something that is kicking in, and that could make a difference. I when I started working on this a few years ago, one of my colleagues was telling me, you're gonna purchase jobless, so I need to start register for unemployment, as a joke. He's a full tenure professor, so that's clearly as a joke. But and I was telling him, I mean, I guess AI stuff will not be able to do something at the level of mathematicians for a good 10 years, at least, at the very least. And now I'm not so sure about that. I mean, I feel like things are going very quickly. And when I work as a regular mathematician, working and proving lemmas to then prove theorems, I realized that there are many things that takes a lot of time and that could probably be automated today, like automated today already, like that AI could work. Not the chat, not ChatGPT or DeepSeek or directly, but something that will be tailored for this. So I think this will be a big part of my project in the coming future. I'll still work on control theory, and I think even in this area, there are even in pure math, there are nice things that you can do with AI. Um, for instance, when you want to study the stability of a system, there's something that is extremely useful to get is an energy of the system. If you can find what we call it Lyapunov function, but that's not really important. It's kind of an energy of the system, and if you can show that there is a decreasing energy in the system, it means that your system is stable. The funny part is that we don't have any. I mean, we have a few tools, but we don't have any general tools to find an energy in the system. People just try to use their intuition to find one. So with your experience, you kind of look at the system and say, ah, I think this could work, and then you try it, and if it doesn't work, you try something else. Um, but overall, humans are not very good at doing this. And we spent the last year and a half with people from Meta still to try to do this with an AI. You just have an AI, you show it these kind of systems, and it tries to have a mathematical intuition better than mathematicians. And the funny part is that it works, and it works like much better than any humans I've ever met, at least. On data sets where humans have between 10% accuracy to 25%, and 10% are my students, 25 is me. The AI has like 87.
Wow.
So something that yeah. So I feel like there are many things to just give conjectures and that we haven't really the mathematical problems where we have been blocked because you need to have some intuition at some point, and human intuition might not be enough. So I think I'll keep a pure math part where I actually take a paper and a pen and then prove theorems by hand. But I'll probably do 50-50 between AI for math and this kind of theoretical math.
Yeah, it'll be nice when you can kind of just automate it. Maybe you'll get like a grading robot for your homework or whatever, or for the tests.
Oh gosh, if I could get an AI that grades the paper, the master level papers for me instead of
Yeah,
me doing it, that would be amazing.
yeah. Well, maybe that's a project also. Well, Mr. Hyatt, I enjoyed having you on the podcast today. It was really interesting to learn about all this math, and I could kind of understand it when you explained it in simplified terms. So thank you for joining me today on the podcast.
Thanks a lot.